Hello everybody. Welcome back to another video. It's currently around 9:23 in the morning and I woke up around an hour ago. But I am here to deliver the forecast on the Weather Prediction Center for you guys. Um, so currently, right now on the national forecast chart, sorry, just a little bit over energized today. That's why I'm sorry. I'm whatever. Currently on the national forecast chart. Uh, this is today's weather outlook for today was issued at 4:15 a.m. So it may be a little bit old, but it still gets the job done. Um, as you can see, there are rain and thunderstorm chances from Montana and Wyoming in the Rocky Mountains, all the way down through the Dakotas, through the Great Lakes states, through the plains, the Midwest, Southeast, and parts of the Mid-Atlantic region. Rain and thunderstorms are expected today, also in the Northeast and into New England, and also from Oklahoma to Texas to Mexico. We have mixed precipitation expected from Washington State all the way up to even British Columbia and Canada to Idaho to Montana to Wyoming. We also have heavy rain and flash flooding that are very possible, which these equate to a slight risk of flash flooding from Montana and the Canadian border to North Dakota to South Dakota to Wyoming, and we also have another slight risk equivalent of flash flooding from Georgia to the extreme tip of South Carolina to Alabama to Florida. And we have severe thunderstorms that are very possible, which equates to a slight risk issued by the Storm Prediction Center from Kansas to Missouri, which also includes the Kansas City metropolitan area. So, we have two centers of low pressure up in Canada, one above Washington and one above Montana. We have a clustering of lows in the southwest, one low on the Texas-Mexico border, one low in western South Dakota, one low in Kansas, one low in Mississippi, and one low kind of bordering the coast of Georgia. We also have a low in Canada, uh, north of Maine. We have high pressure systems, one near the DC Baltimore area, kind of like that. Uh, one near Cape Coral, Florida, just off the coast. One in Colorado. One in Michigan near Gaylord and Grand Traverse, Michigan. And that's really it for the high pressure systems. We have some lows extending and clinging onto some frontal boundaries. For example, we have a Kansas low that's in a triple point, on a triple point that's where the low originates from. You have a cold front, and then a dry line slash occluded front, and then like a combo of warm and cold fronts. So that's a definite triple point right there. Uh, you also have a low in Utah and a low in Utah and high in Colorado, and two opposing pressure systems that are together will usually cause wind gradients. So yeah, just keep an eye out on that. Now we go over to tomorrow. We definitely have a greater appearance of high risk or sorry, high pressures. We have a high pressure system now in Montana, a high in Wyoming, a high in Colorado, a high near the Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee triad, a high in like Green Bay, Wisconsin, and a high off kind of like the Maine to Canada border, kind of just above Maine a little bit. And then we have some lows that are once again draped from cold fronts to dry lines. We have a low pressure system in Canada. We have a low in Washington, a low in California, lows that are being draped. Uh, like I said earlier, this low is from Canada. and it's scraping down a cold front where another low in South Dakota is attached to it. And then two frontal systems actually diverge from this low. Two of those low pressure systems, if you're going to the southwest, occur in Oklahoma, or will it be in Oklahoma/Texas and New Mexico/Texas. And then another low that's kind of being draped. One is actually off the coast of Cape Cod, off the coast of Massachusetts and Boston and stuff like that. But you have another low uh, that extends from Missouri/Arkansas all the way down to South Carolina, and then the warm front goes off the coast. Yeah, that's that. That's for tomorrow. We have rain and thunderstorms expected from Washington State all the way down to Florida and the Mid-Atlantic near the Delmarva area. We also have some tiny chances of rain and thunderstorms for the Mid-Atlantic, and actually, I should say the northern Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast regions. And we just have general rain from New Hampshire and Vermont to Maine and Canada. We also have mixed precipitation from the Rockies to Canada, Wyoming to Idaho to Montana to Canada, and we also have severe thunderstorms, which equate to a slight risk issued by the Storm Prediction Center for Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, and extreme southeastern Wyoming. That's for tomorrow, that's for Monday. And then for Tuesday, we have kind of more simple. Uh, there are a myriad of low pressure systems that are connected to one cold front. You have one in California, one in Utah, one near the New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas triad, one in Kansas, one in Georgia, one off the coast, and that's it. And then you have another low that's also off the coast that's not affiliated with the cold front. And a low also near the border between New Mexico and Mexico. You have two, oh, can't forget this low up in Canada. You have two high pressure systems, one near the Idaho, Montana, Wyoming triad, and then one just above the Great Lakes in Canada. You have rain and thunderstorms from Idaho and Montana down to Texas and Mexico, down to Florida, and then up through the Delmarva area, stopping just southwest and southeast to south of DC. You have heavy rain and flash flooding that is possible from New Mexico to Texas, and you have a slight risk of severe weather for day 3 issued from the Dakotas to extreme northeastern Wyoming to extreme eastern Montana. So that should be pretty interesting. So let's look at the excessive rainfall outlook. Again, we have a slight risk of flash flooding in Montana, the Dakotas, and Wyoming. Also in the southeast, we have a couple of marginal risks, one in Montana, one in the central United States, and then one in New Mexico and Texas. This is for tomorrow. Tuesday, we have a slight risk of flash flooding from New Mexico to Texas, and the same thing happens on Wednesday. Friday, we no longer have a slight risk of flash flooding, but a marginal risk is still maintained, and it goes from New Mexico and Texas all the way to the Great Lakes region and Duluth, Minnesota. So that should be pretty fun and interesting. Shouldn't say fun, but definitely interesting. Anyways, so day 1 excessive rainfall outlook. Now, since I'm recording this in the morning, there haven't been any updates yet because the updates simply just don't exist yet. But if there are major updates, like for example, a moderate risk comes out, I will give you guys that update, and then that's all. So, excessive rainfall outlook. National Weather Service Weather Prediction Center, College Park, Maryland, 4:25 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Sunday, May 31st, 2026. Also, speaking of May 31st, 2026, it has been 13 years since the El Reno, Oklahoma EF3 touched down and killed Tim Samaras, Paul Samaras, and Carl Young. They were a part of the TwistX team that were chasing the El Reno tornado, which is the widest tornado of all time at over 2.6 miles wide. They were chasing that, and unfortunately, their vehicle got struck by a subvortice, a a a vortex uh, that was not associated with the tornado. It was a multi-vortex. A little a little a little appendage struck their car and unfortunately pulled them into the tornado and killed all of them. And that will never ever be forgotten. This is a day that you shall always remember, May 31st, 2013. You can look it up, but unfortunately, storm chasers were killed on that day, and it can never ever be forgotten. It's been 13 years, can never be forgotten. Anyways, sorry I got a little off track there. It's just very important to memorialize and commemorate them because they were awesome storm chasers. Anyways, so there's a slight risk of excessive rainfall over portions of the northern Rockies in the southeastern United States. Northern Rockies. With rainfall ongoing from Saturday due to a slow-moving mid and upper level system over the northern Rockies, we opted to keep portions of Montana and nearby Wyoming and the far western Dakotas in a slight risk area during the new Day 1 period. The expectation is that rainfall intensities will not be as high as they were on Saturday, but the cumulative effect of an additional 1 inch or greater amounts on top of what has already fallen has the potential to produce flooding concerns today. The slight risk area was extended into far western South Dakota, where MRMS showed 3 inches or greater, having fallen on Saturday evening and was susceptible to flooding from even modest rainfall amounts. The southeastern United States. We also introduced a slight risk area over portions of the southeast, where some model agreement has developed, although the agreement was far from unanimous. Neither the HREF or the RFS showed a strong signal for exceedance of flash flooding guidance, but showed about 20% neighborhood probabilities of rainfall exceeding 2 inches. At the same time, a spaghetti plot of SREF QPF showed decent amounts of ARW members with QPF at 2-inch and 3-inch amounts. That was largely supported by the GFS. Given the 2 to 2.5 inch precipitable water values, which is very high, and the amount of instability in the area that could support intense rainfall rates, we opted to include a slight risk at this point. Elsewhere, we maintained the broad and largely unfocused marginal risk area in between, given the lack of clear forcing mechanisms, the light flow aloft, and the broad pool of instability along and south of a quasi-stationary boundary. So that will be what will happen today. This is what's going to happen tomorrow, so there's going to be a couple of marginal risks. Obviously, the forecast will change, but just pay attention. So, Northern Rockies. Introduced a marginal risk area in the Northern Rockies where moisture and precipitation lingers as a slow-moving mid and upper level system pulls away. The concern is not so much for rainfall intensity at this point, but for the cumulative effect of the additional rain on top of what has fallen in the previous few days. The concern is also fairly limited in terms of duration, as rainfall does come to an end during the middle to latter part of the period. The Western High Plains. We also introduced a marginal risk area mainly in the western portions of Kansas and Nebraska as an axis of low-level moisture begins to return northward during the day. The placement of the quantitative precipitation forecast and any associated risk of excessive rainfall remains somewhat tenuous. Concern is that the instability should be enough, that the QPF amounts approaching or exceeding 2 inches from the UK Met and the NAM and GFS would be quickly delivered quickly. I don't know what this A is for, but whatever. Just a typo. Southeastern United States. Portions of the Mid-South and the Southeast may also be at risk for excessive rainfall, but guidance remains murky on where thunderstorms will initiate. Given these reasons, the Day 2 extended rainfall outlook remains free of risk areas for the time being. Okay, cool. So this is for Monday. This is for Tuesday. Tuesday's outlook. Again, slight risk from New Mexico to Texas. Same thing on Wednesday, but Wednesday's in a different period, and Thursday is not a slight risk, but it still maintains flash flooding. So, day 3 excessive rainfall outlook. There is a slight risk of excessive rainfall over portions of New Mexico and a small portion of western Texas. Surprised that there's very little that the Weather Prediction Center has to disseminate. It's literally just one paragraph. A plume of Gulf-sourced moisture will be drawn northward into the southern Rockies and is drifting east over the southern high plains into West Texas to maintain a slight risk area for excessive rainfall on Tuesday into Tuesday night from portions of New Mexico into West Texas. Farther north, warm and moist air will advect along a low-level convergence zone, with early June heating that has the potential for locally heavy rainfall over portions of the western high plains into the Dakotas. Very surprised that they didn't really give much there. Anyways, this is day 4, and this is day 5. They're both in the same period together. I don't know why, but they are. So day 4 maintains a slight risk for New Mexico and Texas. Then day 5 does not have a slight risk anymore, but still maintains the marginal risk from, the Mexico border to Duluth, Minnesota. Let's read. So a slow-moving surface low-pressure system will focus scattered to isolated showers and thunderstorms over portions of the northern plains and the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes on Wednesday and Thursday. Some thunderstorms may produce isolated instances of flash flooding, which is why a marginal risk, at least a 5% chance, of excessive rainfall is in effect for portions of the plains and the upper Midwest. Meanwhile, a weak mid-level disturbance propagating northward across the southern high plains will also act as a forcing mechanism for more thunderstorm activity across portions of the central and the southern plains. A slight risk area, at least a 15% chance, of excessive rainfall leading to flash flooding is in effect for portions of southeastern New Mexico and western Texas on Wednesday. A deep upper-level low will bring rain to the Pacific Northwest late this week and into the weekend. Some showers may spill over into the northern Rockies and the High Plains by Saturday. Elsewhere, a weak quasi-stationary front draped across Florida will generate daily showers and thunderstorms over the peninsula. A ridge centered over the Midwest will promote broad southerly flow into the eastern half of the country late next week. Temperatures will gradually increase over portions of the Midwest and the East Coast as the ridge shifts eastward, with much of the mid-Atlantic coast in particular, possibly experiencing some heat risk impacts by the weekend, as lows will struggle to drop into the 60s in some places. So, the Weather Prediction Center essentially went over precipitation, and they also go over some potential heat risk outlooks, or cold. Um, we could look at the extended forecast discussion. So yeah, that is it. Anyways, y'all, I hope you have a wonderful day, everybody. So, peace out.